Most people can't do the same thing like that.
How's everybody doing? Okay?
Great.
Yeah. Great. Is this thing on?
Yeah.
So we want to welcome everybody here today. We have a very important election coming up. My name is David Zier. I'm in the building and real estate business on Long Island with my family for 30 plus years. And you know, Long Island's a very special place, but somewhere along the line I think we lost our way. You know, 1 out of 3 Long Islanders in the workforce work for the government at some level, so we're very comfortable here. And you know, since the peace dividend in '89, we lost 250,000 jobs back then. We never really replaced them with real jobs. And we have a generation gap. And I've lost 2 of my 4 children off the island already. Hopefully I can keep the remaining ones here. So it's very important. As a registered Republican, I'm also a conservative. And it's really important that we band together and keep our Republican or conservative principles and hold people to the fire. And the Tea Party movement in '09 was very special. We brought 1.5 million, 2 million people to Washington, and it was a really special time. Since, I think, a lot of what's gone on has been hijacked in media blurbs and our comfortability. So we have to get our edge back, and we're very proud to have Heidi Cruz here with us today. Here, and she's a wonderful woman, and she's got a great presence, and she's very humble, and she knocks on doors for her husband, and we're excited to have Ted here, and hopefully, you know, we can keep Trump under 50% in New York State. And thank you very much for attending.
I have such a wonderful backdrop of dear friends. Thank you all for being here and supporting, and thank you all for coming. I love New York, and I feel like as a now Texan, I did grow up in California, but as a now Texan, I need to tell you how much I love New York. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in my speech. I had my first move. I grew up in a small town in California, and I used to, it was in the Central Coast. And my parents had us weeding corn and picking berries and doing a lot of agrarian things. And I used to watch the news at night, and from when I was about 6 years old, I wanted to move to New York, because this is where great things happen. So I did, my first job. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. But thank you so much for having me here. Ted has been in New York quite a bit. You've seen in the news, he's coming back. But we both want to spend as much time here as we can. I, in general, Ted, in the next weeks to come, and you have a great state and a great, important, critical election coming up. But thank you for pulling together here in Suffolk County. I know that David mentioned that kids are leaving the island, that you all have great families and communities here, and then your kids are leaving to other places to find jobs. And we need to change that, because this is one of the most beautiful places in this country, and you all have had big industry here on the island before. We need to return that. Ted and I have been traveling the country, and as I reflect back, we have been on the road for just over a year and almost a month. And you know, it's funny when you walk into a place, and we actually often stay in Hilton's. And so often you walk into a place and you know that feeling that you've kind of been somewhere before, and you might have been told that you've never been there before. We were in a small town in South Carolina, and the team said, we've never been here before, this will be a whole new set of people to meet and events. And the night before we walked into this hotel, and I said, you guys, we have I just feel like we've been here before. The restaurant, all the chairs were turned the exact same way. The pool out of the window was the exact same angle. And what I realized is it was a Hampton Inn. So if you were ever looking for perfect brand consistency on your vacation, stay at a Hampton Inn. Or when you've really been on the road and are getting a little travel worn, when you walk into a regional airport and on any business trip, you would be tired and fatigued, and you really feel at home. You know, Your day has ended, you're in the regional airport. The only problem is you always have to go through security to get your dinner. But when we get to the airport, we feel like we're home. We've been living in airports, we've been living on planes, and it's been an absolute honor because when you do that, you have the chance to meet so many great Americans across this country, outside of your neighborhood, outside of your church, your school community, and it's really been a great blessing. So that's what energizes us. You may have heard a few things about Ted and myself and our family, that we live in Houston, Texas, that Ted's father came here from Cuba. But you may or may not know the special place that New York holds in both of our hearts. My first job was in New York City. My first rent check was made out to a New York real estate broker. My first taxes were paid in New York. So I know a little bit about what you're dealing with. And I came to New York fresh out of college. I thought I had arrived in the center of the universe when I landed at LaGuardia. And to this day, I think I may have indeed. I rented a small place in the city and took the subway to work every day. I loved the smell of New York. I loved the feel of New York. I loved the hustle and bustle. And what I loved was that it was hard. It was hard to live here. It was hard to make a living here. The people were tough. They were leaders. They were industrious. You are survivors. You made things happen. I'm proud to be part of a campaign that wants to make life better for New Yorkers, for business in this state, for kids going to school, for parents, and for the wonderful mix of people from across the world that call New York home. To Ted and me, you're truly a unique state. And because we believe in your ability, we know that New York, again, can reach the pinnacle of success. When Ted was elected in 2012, it was painted as an impossible race to win in Texas. Ted was a private sector attorney. He had served as Solicitor General of our state, which my daughter and I reminded him daily that nobody knows who their Solicitor General is. He had 2% name ID with a margin of error of 3%. And so I reminded him that he could have negative name ID. But you know, there was a movement started, and it was started by a couple really important people on stage. And it was a movement that people have called the Tea Party, the Freedom Caucus. These are fiscal conservatives. These are constitutionalists. These are people who believe in the basic liberties that we take for granted as Americans. And in 2009, Ted was very inspired by the fact that our population had recognized that government was no longer working for the people. And we needed to make our elected politicians listen to us, the voters. And so Ted won that race. It was considered impossible to win. But when Texans looked at his character and his record, they said, yes, we're tired of the status quo. It's time to ensure that elected officials are listening to us and representing us. We need someone who's going to be an agent of change. Someone who's going to go to Washington and stand up for our values, keep the campaign promises that they made, understand that these are not just talking points, but we're actually going to do it. Work to defeat Obamacare and reduce our debt. Those are the two things that Ted does. And Ted has been doing exactly that. What was a surprise is that by representing 27 million Texans and doing simply what he said he would do, 2 big projects, 2 big problems, but he didn't add anything to his agenda. After being in office for just a few months, he was incredibly unpopular in Washington, and he was incredibly popular in Texas. It's amazing how when you go to Washington, your colleagues in the Congress and the Senate are actually surprised that you're following through on what you told the voters that you would do. And that's why Ted decided that it was time to change this system. We can't continue to go along to get along. We can't continue to elect people who have great talking points. We all could recite them, exactly what you need to do to run in a Republican primary in any state in this union. But how many people have actually been doing it? And the reason is the cost of doing the right thing in Washington is so high, personally, politically, and in terms of your ability to continue to lead. The lobby wants you to do what big business wants you to do, not what individual small business owners want you to do. The leadership in Congress threatens you to strip you of committee seats if you don't do what they want. And Ted answers to one single set of people, and that is the 27 million individual small business owners, hardworking colleagues of ours around this country that elected him. So let me tell you, tell you three things today. We have a big week in front of us. We all have a lot of work to do, so I'll try to be as quick as I can so we can get back out to calling people on the phone, our friends and neighbors, and walking neighborhoods. But let me tell you three things that might make your job easier this week in telling people why you're voting for Ted. And if you're undecided, I'm really glad you're here, because hopefully these three things will help you understand who Ted is. The first is, I want to tell you why I fell in love with Ted 16 years ago. It's because of his strong character and many, many of the other qualities that I believe are really, really important to this election. I also want to tell you what Ted will do as president. What things are most important to him. There are things that unify our party. And lastly, how we win. You know, the first thing that I learned about Ted when I met him 16 years ago in Texas, we met on the George W. Bush campaign. And George W. Bush, in his first campaign as a fiscal and economic, social, and national security conservative. We met on that campaign, and the first thing that I learned about Ted is how incredibly principled he is. Ted was raised on the Constitution and the Bible. His father, Rafael, came here from Cuba as a freedom fighter. Elections were sacred to him. They were not just a civic responsibility, but something that you do to protect yourself from tyranny. Every single one of you has an immigrant story, whether it's your generation, the next generation. New Yorkers are the heartbeat of immigration in this country, and there are people who have come here from all over the world, and we need to make sure that that system is fair, that it's legal, that it allows us to bring in people that need to be in this country. Ted is pro-immigration. He's pro-legal immigration. He would not be here, his family would not be here, if it weren't for this country accepting people from all over the world. His father understands what a privilege it is to be an American by choice, to be an immigrant. His mother was the first in her family to go to college. Eleanor grew up in Delaware. She was the daughter of factory workers for the DuPonts. No one in her family had gone to college. Her mother was one of 17 children. Eleanor graduated in 1956 with a degree in math and was one of the first computer programmers in the oil industry. She is a woman of great wisdom. She has a backbone of steel. She's very, very wise, and she's patient till the day is long. She's completely unflappable, and to this day I tell Texans when I'm in the state that their U.S. senator still listens to one person in the world ultimately, and that is his mother. So you all should know that your next president, should he be elected, still listens to his mother. If there's anything that we need to get done on the team, and even I can't quite convince him of this shift, I invite Eleanor to come over. She's a late night person, even at 80, and she will wait him out. She can stay up later, she can sit here longer, she can listen longer, and that's how we ultimately can get a couple things done if we need to. The thing that I loved about Ted was how consistent he was in his principles, that even from a young age, he knew what he believed and he was not going to change. And the reason he knew is because his family taught him these values. His family taught him at the dinner table the meaning of the Constitution, the imperative of that document to protect our freedoms, and the value of the inspiration of the Bible to our lives and to that document. The second thing I learned about Ted is how incredibly courageous he is. He's willing to sacrifice political capital in Washington in order to do what is right, what he was elected to do. Sometimes people ask me, why does Ted not get along better with his Senate colleagues? And I say, you know, Ted gets along just fine with his Senate colleagues, for those who are trying to get something done for you. There are people who have called him names, who have said things on the floor that were unkind. Ted does not respond in kind. He invites them to dinner. The only reason that people have said that they don't know that they like Ted is because he is taking an active role in doing what the voters have asked him to do, and this party is starting to unify behind that activity. The third thing that I want to tell you about Ted, that you may not see in the public as much, or in the news articles, or in the eyes of the cameras, is how incredibly thoughtful he is. Ted is a person who puts others before himself, even when it's hard and inconvenient. He's the friend who cancels the Senate schedule to go sit in the hospital in a 6-hour surgery with our dear friend who is undergoing an operation. He's the husband who, an hour before the South Carolina debate, which there were a lot of candidates in that debate, and these are important events, came running into the hotel room, and anyone would have been asking for some help or grab this or do this, and Ted was just bringing me flowers and some chocolates before the debate to make sure that I felt good before sitting there for 3 hours. That is a wonderful husband who is so at peace with what he's doing, who has such a command of the subject, who is so prepared at all times that he has time at the last minute to be thoughtful. He's a wonderful father. We have 2 little girls. Caroline is 7, and Catherine is 5, and they've been traveling with us. And last week I had them on the stage, and I introduced them, and I said that Caroline was 7, and she pulled the microphone her way and whispered loudly, "I'm almost 8." So she will be 8 on Thursday. But what people don't see is Ted's favorite thing to do is to sit on the floor and play bingo with them. He and Caroline have an ongoing game that lasts for even the time that he's gone traveling. He loves to read to them at night. There was a time when he was so tired, he'd not gotten enough sleep, he was home for a day, and Caroline wanted to sit with her in her bedroom while she fell asleep, which all of us parents and grandparents know can be hours. And I said, no way, I'll be in the kitchen getting some things done, I've got my eye on you, and Ted went and sat and rubbed her feet for about an hour. This is a father who puts his kids first, who puts his family first, even in the most stressful times. We go on bus tours through the states. We've been in Iowa, Wisconsin, and Ted will often call me from the bus if I'm not there with him, just to sing to me in the middle of the day. Somebody asked me once if he had a good voice, and I said, he chose the right profession, but I do love when Ted calls in the middle of a presidential, right before a big interview, and calls and is just singing. This is a happy warrior. This is a person who is solidified in his values. He's not learning talking points. He really believes it. He's really doing it, and he has a proven record. I also love how unflappable Ted is, how low-key he is. His favorite thing to eat for dinner, to this day, is Campbell's Chunky Soup. So if anyone knows one of you knows someone who works for Campbell's, you can tell them that Ted Cruz's favorite product is Campbell's Chunky Soup. This is a person who is very easy to be around, who's not demanding, who has his priorities straight. So let me tell you a little bit about what I think this election is about and what Ted will do for our country as president. You know, there is an anger at the political class that no longer represents we, the people, but their own special interests. We have some big problems. We are still the greatest country on earth, I believe, but we have some big problems that we have not really been dealing with. When Caroline was born, almost 8 years ago, we had a $10 trillion debt. Right now, we have a $19 trillion debt. We have never doubled the size of our debt in such a short time period. We have a military that feels weakened. We have friends around the world that are wondering who we're with. We have an economic growth situation that is far too slow. We're hearing it all over the news these last couple weeks. And in the last year, I've traveled across this country, and I know that this anger comes from hardworking Americans who can no longer get ahead. Not because of their abilities, but because of the amount of government that is forced on their daily lives. Our interest rates are low because the Fed has decided to take the job of managing the economy. And as a result, seniors cannot live off their hard-earned money. Men and women are performing an honest day's work for years and years, only to have their wages remain the same while the cost of living rises. And wages are being held down in some states largely because of illegal immigration. You know, Arizona is a perfect example of this, and if you care to look into it, there have been some articles written recently by the Wall Street Journal on what Arizona has done to clamp down on illegal immigration. We don't have to wonder what happens. Go look at what's happened in Arizona in the last few years. The minimum wage by market forces has risen. We need to start following the law in this country, making sure that the laws represent us, then following them, and then letting the private sector take over. It's time to start doing these basic things so that we all benefit. For this country, we need to elect someone that will take on the unwitting political class. We need to elect someone who has taken on the unwitting political class, not someone who's been part of and benefited from the system. I believe that Ted is the right person for this job. Ted's willing to stand up for what is right, no matter the political cost, for what is the will of the people. Texans know this, and that's why on Super Tuesday, Ted won the state of Texas with a 17% margin above the present frontrunner. It was a resounding margin. It's interesting that when people know the candidate best, look at the margin by which they win. The first thing, Ted will do 3 main priorities as president of this country. And his entire prism for what these priorities should be is what does he know from the American people that we need the most. And the first is jobs. Ted will reduce taxes and regulations to get the private sector going again. by creating a simple flat tax. He's put out a detailed proposal. Small businesses will be his priority, where they can once again flourish and the private sector can create more jobs. He will dramatically reduce the size and scope of the regulatory state. He's put out a thing called 5 for Freedom that would eliminate 5 departments. The Department of Commerce, the Education Department, Energy, Housing and Urban Development, and by implementing a flat tax where everyone can fill out their taxes on a postcard, we can eliminate the IRS, this bureaucracy of 90,000 people that is targeting special. So many Republicans, every Republican campaigns on reducing the regulatory state. Can't find one who won't say it. But Republicans have also grown government over and over and over. And you will elect, if you vote for Ted, you will be electing a strong 10th Amendment president that believes in returning power to the states and changing what our current federal government looks like to return power to you, to localities, to communities, along all of these lines, including education. Priority of a Cruz administration is freedom, constitutional freedom. You know, we are a people who have come here from all over the world for generations. We are a fabric of states, and it is natural that people would live differently culturally in different states. That is part of the greatness of our country. Ted will protect our constitutional liberties. If words are not enumerated therein, those powers should remain with the states. He already has an incredible record of defending the Constitution, of defending religious liberty, of defending freedom of speech, our right to keep and bear arms, our right to privacy, standing up for the 10th Amendment, and he will continue to stand up for U.S. sovereignty and for our rights. We don't have to wonder what Ted will do. He has a record of 10 years of defending these values in the courts and winning in landmark cases where a lot of these decisions have been made by 5-4 votes in the courts. We have a legal system that's in the balance, and the other thing that Ted will do in terms of protecting our constitutional liberties is I can guarantee you he will appoint the right justices to the U.S. Supreme Court. So many Republicans have taken it seriously but have not gotten it quite right, and I think they've been well-meaning. But the prism has been, who can we get through the U.S. Senate? Ted doesn't think that way. He thinks who has the best constitutional record so that we can depend on them, and then he will use his political capital as president to drive them through the Senate for you. The last thing that I think the most important function of government is our security. If elected president, I can guarantee you Ted will keep our country safe. And you know, as a mom in the city of Houston, relatively safe city, but a lot of crime just like any other city, I feel less safe with my girls going to school every day because of things that are going on in the Middle East and now in our homeland than I did 8 years ago. Ted will keep our country safe. He will prioritize defeating ISIS resoundingly. As Commander-in-Chief, he will have the backs of the men and women in uniform and give them the respect and honor that they deserve. He will build our military to the strongest that this world has ever known once again, with the proper funding, equipment, and training. And boy, do we have work to do to make sure that when you all and we dedicate the lives of our daughters and our sons to the military, that they can succeed, that they are there for just battles, that they are there to represent the national security interests of our country, not nation building. And Ted will work hard to do everything in his power to fight those battles for us by using the bully pulpit of peace, by making sure that our country is such a threat that no one dares go into battle with us, so that we can preserve the lives of our soldiers, our airmen, our Marines, because they're so well prepared. Security includes securing our border. Security includes comprehensive immigration reform. We must secure the border. We must stop the inflow of people that we don't know who they are, we don't know who's coming. We must reform legal immigration, and we must make sure that this country is upholding the law. If Ted runs on these 3 points, on jobs, freedom, and security, jobs, freedom, and security, with a mandate from the people, we can win and turn this country around. If we have a president that's focused on keeping his word and representing each and every one of us, just like Ted has done for Texans, Congress will have no choice but to act. They will have to repeal Obamacare because you asked them to. And if they don't, you'll vote them out of office. And you will have a president who will have your back. They will have to return power to the states if you ask them to, because you will have a president who will have your back. They have to get rid of Common Core, and Ted will ensure that happens. The Congress is going to have to get serious about balancing our budget. The Congress will have to get serious about instituting a flat tax. And most importantly, the Congress will have to actually represent those who put them in office, we, the people. Ted will ensure that this happens. We've seen this before. This is not a new experience. In 1979, things felt really dark, and a lot of people felt disenfranchised. And in 1 year, the Congress got in line with the president's agenda because the president's agenda was your agenda. I know that this can work. Ted has said many times, on the very first day, he has a very firm grasp of what presidential powers are and what they are not. And he knows that on the very first day, within 24 hours, he can rescind every illegal executive order that Obama has done unilaterally. On day one, he will rip to shreds this incredibly crazy Iran nuclear deal. On day one, he will ask the Department of Justice to launch an investigation into Planned Parenthood for the illegal activities. And on day one, he will return the embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Ted will always do, he will continue to do, as he's always done, stand with the people of Israel. He will not only stand with you, he will be outspoken for you, as he's been in the Senate. There is no stronger supporter of Israel than Christians in this country. It is part of our world story, it's part of our history, it's part of the place of this country on earth to be a friend of Israel. And Ted will do it because it's right, because it's just, and because it's critical to the best interests of the United States of America. Finally, I want to tell you how we'll win. Because all this sounds great, I hope, to those in this room. But how do we do it? You know, we're halfway through doing it right now. And I'm so encouraged by how this primary process has worked out, because we started in this party with a great field of people, with candidates who were younger than we've had before, with Hispanics, with women, with business people. We've had an energized party. We've had record turnout at the polls. We should be very, very proud of this party. But I want to make sure that we finish this primary season very, very proud of the person who's going to represent us. And we've seen a narrowing of the field. And what our campaign is about is exactly what Ted said it was going to be about on March 23. If you go back to his launch speech at Liberty University about uniting this party behind a strong constitutional conservative. And we do that by asking courageous conservatives around this country to remind this country what we are about, and attracting fiscal conservatives, libertarians, evangelicals, young people, millennials, the women vote, and Reagan Democrats. And we have done exactly that as we win state after state. It's wonderful because this is not our plan or our story. This country, I believe, is God's story. And we have stayed in a narrowing field. We don't know the outcome. And we've gotten there a little bit differently than we thought. We have won states all over this country. But I do believe that God has his hand on this country, that our future is in his hands, and if we keep representing him well, if we keep representing religious freedom for people of all faiths, not just Christianity, but religious freedom to protect our rights and why our country was founded, that we as a party will once again elect someone that represents all of us, not out of fear and anger, but out of the love of liberty, of freedom in our Constitution. We have won the last 5 states by overwhelming margins. We swept Colorado this week, winning every single delegate in Colorado. I'll tell you why Ted is winning. It is because of you. We have about 1.2 million people who have signed up to volunteer across this country and are doing exactly that. We have over 1.3 million unique donations, most of which are online, with an average donation size of $62. We've raised over $85 million in this race, and this was the race that the New York Times said, maybe great candidate for the Republicans, maybe someone who can unite people, but not someone who's going to be able to raise any money. They'll get crushed by the establishment, and the exact opposite has happened. People have come around this candidate because they believe that Ted represents them. And I can tell you, I do know Ted better than anybody else, despite what the news media might have you think. I know that the people of New York will join me in taking a true measure of our candidates. I know the people of New York are smart, you're industrious, hardworking. You like someone who's accountable. You like to know that someone's telling you the truth. You like to know that you're getting a fair shake. And you might like to know that the law is being followed. And if you do, you will deliver. If these qualities embody who you are, I ask that you join us in being a courageous conservative and voting for my husband, my best friend, my partner, my life.
Thank you very much for the excellent talk. So, as you foremost told us a few years ago, as conservatives, we're not welcome in New York State anymore. Maybe one day we'll take the state back. So I just wanted to take a moment and thank Gavin Wax. He called me about a week or so ago. We didn't have a lot of time to put the event together, but we're very grateful that Heidi was able to make it. And our numbers are they're growing. And we look forward to a great turnout on April 19th. I just want to take a moment. I wanted to introduce Judith Stern from NORPAC, and she's very active with the campaign. Here from Hartford Funding. He's been active in politics on the island for the past 30 years, and he's a very grassroots kind of guy. He's active in the Cruz campaign. He's a wonderful man. And Steve Flanagan and Judy Papinello. Steve Flanagan founded the Conservative Society for Action, which was the original Tea Party group in the United States. And they've done incredible things together. Judy's operating the Medford office right now, working tirelessly in Patchogue, actually. So we're very excited, and we want to thank everybody for making it. And please spread the word. You know, it's a matter of votes sometimes in certain congressional districts. So if there's a low turnout in some districts, Ted Cruz can get a lot of delegates, and we need to do that because it's in play. So thank you again for coming. Got some beverages on the way out.
Slow-moving vehicle. Slow-moving vehicle. One of the greatest. I believe that. I can guarantee it. Thank you. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Boy, yeah, you have to be slim to stand where you're standing.
I'm the dad of the two cowboy hats, and I met you last week.
Oh, yeah, it's nice to see you. Thank you so much. Thanks for
forgiving us to letting him in the house.
We must.
You must.
Thank you. How are you? Hi.
We need a soapbox up there. We can't see you. Come on. Where's the soapbox?
Everyone, welcome. My name is Grant Lally, and I just want to thank you all for coming in and all the hard work you've been doing to elect Ted Cruz as our next president of the United States. We are so honored today to have Heidi Cruz here, out on Long Island campaigning, and we are going to win this primary.
Amen. Yeah.
Let me, before Mrs. Cruz speaks, we just have two quick presentations. First one, I want to introduce Al Corteza from New York right now to make a presentation to Mrs. Cruz.
Mrs. Cruz, welcome to the Empire State.
Thank you, Al.
As a board member of New York Right Now, the leading conservative political action committee in the state, I'd like to present this to you on behalf of our organization. It's a taste of New York.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And could I also introduce Judy Pepinell? And we all know Maureen Daly, who has been running this campaign out here.
Mrs. Cruz, we present these to you on behalf of New York Women for Cruz, and we want you to know you have our back, we have your back, and we have Senator Cruz's back.
Yes.
We're all very proud to stand with you.
Good.
Now let's make phone calls. So much.
Mrs. Cruz is going to say a few things.
Yes.
You're more than welcome.
Let me just make a quick introduction. Heidi Cruz doesn't really need an introduction. The wife of Senator Ted Cruz, but a very accomplished, successful woman in her own right. A graduate of Harvard Business School with an MBA, another MBA from Brussels in Europe, worked on the Bush 2000 campaign doing critical work, worked in the White House with the National Security Council, working on Western Hemisphere affairs, and working with Goldman Sachs as a great investment counselor. Heidi Cruz has done amazing things. You've done amazing things in your career. Thank you for coming, and please say a few words, Deb.
Well, your introductions are far too generous because I have a very, very simple job right now, and that is to join together with each and every one of you to elect Ted as the next president of the United States.
That decisions are important. And with that, we want to thank God for this time, and we want to welcome Mrs. Heidi Cruz.
It is such a privilege and honor to be with you. And I see that you prepared a little bit, and it's very, very humbling to see this beautiful stage with a little bit of campaign rigor put to it. And there's no better place to speak than the house of God. And I really appreciate the balance that Pastor John pointed out, because we do have separation of church and state in this country, and it's an important separation. But we also have a beautiful thing that our country was built on the freedom to worship as we please, and the freedom to learn from those that we respect, like Pastor John, about the Bible. And we have the freedom to vote for whoever we please and whoever we believe reflects our values. But shouldn't we vote for whoever reflects our values so that we have leadership that represents us? And there are many people in this country that believe many different things. There are people who have different values. There are other religions. And that, I think, is something that we should celebrate, and we as individuals should make every effort that we can to represent the God that we serve and convince people of Christianity through who we are. Not through a court law or through our judicial system, but rather what examples we are for others. And so I am very comfortable with this interaction of churches with elections. I'm also comfortable when pastors choose not to endorse, because the endorsement that Ted and I are looking for is the endorsement of individual voters. And so we are very honored that you would spend some time with us, getting to know us today. Ted and I have been traveling for just over a year now. We started this campaign on March 23, and it was a great launch at Liberty University. I see you've captured a little bit of it here. We had a really fun day, and I love Ted's speech about imagining a country where people live in freedom, where there are job offers for our college students, where people believe in having a future again, and where we uphold the law of the land and we protect our nation. But we've been traveling for a year now, and sometimes you go to new places, but you feel like you've been somewhere before, and it might be because you see an old friend in a certain location, but I guess they call it deja vu, when you feel like you've been somewhere before. And we were in a hotel, and we walked in late at night, and we're probably a little road weary, and so our team had told me that we'd never been here before. I said, you guys, we've been here before. I feel it. I've been in this room. That the chairs in the restaurant were all pointed the exact same way as I remembered. There was a little swimming pool outside the window at this hotel. It was the exact same angle when we walked out. I had been there before. And then I realized we've been on the road for over a year, and it was another Hampton Inn. So if you ever go on vacation and are looking for a consistent brand experience, you should go reserve a place for your family at the Hampton Inn. They will all be the same. We've gotten very comfortable in regional airports. When we get to the airport at the end of the day, we feel like we're home. We can put up our feet, turn on the television. You have to go through security to get your dinner, and you have to buy your dinner. But other than that, the airports have become our home. And the energy behind this campaign that has been accumulating, as you can see, there used to be energy spread between 17 people, and now it's spread between 3. Our energy has come from meeting you, from meeting Americans across this country who share the same values. And we're all different. We all have different backgrounds, but there is a common set of values of belief in growth, opportunity, freedom, and security that Ted and I believe are what make all of us American. And this country is starting to unite. This Republican Party is starting to unite behind this campaign. So many of you have heard things about Ted and me. That you may know that we are from Texas, that we live in Houston, that his father came here from Cuba. But you may or may not know that New York holds a very, very special place in my heart. I grew up in California on a small, very rural farm in a small town. My father was a local dentist, and we grew up weeding corn and picking berries. My brother and I had a small business baking bread. And as I was there doing these great outdoor activities, I dreamed of living in New York. And so when I graduated from college, I moved to New York. My first job was here. My first rent check was made out to a New York real estate broker. My first taxes were paid in New York. I came here fresh out of college, and I used to ride the subway every day to work. I thought I had arrived in the center of the universe. And to this day, I think maybe I did. I'm very inspired by your state. I love the smell of New York. I love the hustle and bustle. I love that it was hard. And I, to this day, love the people of New York. You are survivors. You are leaders. New Yorkers make great things happen. And we are looking to you to make great things happen on April 19th. I'm proud to be part of a campaign that wants to make life better for business in New York, for kids going to school in New York, for parents, and the wonderful mix of people who have come all across this world into the United States legally to call New York home. Ted's family is an immigrant family. His father came here with nothing, with $100 sewn into his underwear. He washed dishes for 50 cents an hour, put himself through school. He didn't speak English, so he had to be a math major. Started a small business. It was the American dream, and I know that every one of you has that story. It's true across this country. It's really true in New York, so we feel a special kinship. You know, when Ted was elected in 2012, it was painted as an impossible race. Ted was in the private sector. He was a lawyer. He had 2% name ID. I'm sure most of you sitting here have higher than 2% name ID in your communities. And his margin of error was 3%. So as wives do, I reminded him he might have negative name ID. But Texans took a look at his character. He traveled the state for 2 years. He met every single person he could individually. He stayed up late. He had conversations about issues. They looked at his record. He had defended our Constitution over and over. And they said, yes, we are tired of the status quo, of electing people who give us talking points but have never done it, of people saying that they believe in something but don't have a proven record. We need someone who's going to be an agent of change. And so they elected Ted to go to Washington to stand up for our values, to keep the campaign promises that he made, to defeat Obamacare, and to reduce the debt. And Ted is doing exactly that. He is doing exactly what 27 million Texans elected him to do. Now, the response, thank you for because the response in Washington, D.C. has been exactly the opposite. It has been booing, because you have given this Congress an 11% approval rating, and whoever goes up there to do what you elected them to do gets blamed for shutting down the government, for being an obstructionist, for the system that's in place of you get elected with a certain set of talking points, and then you have a pretty good job for a long time. You could keep it for sure for 2 years, maybe 6. And you'll likely get reelected if you come back and just use the same talking points and tell people that you tried. Well, none of us have a job that we would hang on to over and over if we never accomplished the tasks of the company or the business and came back over and over and explained to our boss that this was really hard. We hired you to solve hard problems, and no one in Washington right now is trying to solve hard problems. And this is what we must change. And so Ted stood for 21 hours on the floor of the Senate. He and Mike Lee put together a terrific strategy that would actually cause some work of going to different states and asking the American people what they wanted. 67% of the American people did not want Obamacare. 80% of the American people did not want us to negotiate with Iran in both parties. And somehow we can't get these things done. And so Ted is going to do what you elect him to do. He does not have his own agenda. He has one agenda, and that is finding out what is the mandate of the people, and then through his understanding of the Constitution, going and making sure that this government works for you. Let me tell you 3 things today that might make your job easier over the next week as you go decide who you're going to vote for. And if you have decided, that will make your job easier in telling people about Ted. The first thing I want to tell you is why I fell in love with Ted 16 years ago. Because you might convince your friends and neighbors to go vote, but I want them to vote not just because it's their civic duty, but because they passionately believe that we must have Ted Cruz. That is what has caused this campaign to have the fuel that it has. To have over 1 million volunteers, to have over 1 million donors, is because people are passionate that it's not just that there's no one left in the race other than just 3 people. It's that people are passionate that it must be Ted, and this has always been the case back to when we launched. So I will tell you why I fell in love with Ted and see if these characteristics resonate with you. Secondly, I want to share with you what Ted will do for this country, for New York, for Long Island, if elected President of the United States. And lastly, how do we win? We're halfway through the primary. What do we all need to do as active citizens? So first, the first reason that I fell in love with Ted, we met 16 years ago on a campaign in Texas. I'd never been to Texas before. I came from Boston and New York to go work on this campaign. And when I walked in the door, Ted and I worked together for a year. And I quickly fell in love with him because of many things. But one was, this was a person who was incredibly principled. And I knew within that first month that what he said today was exactly how he was going to be in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 60 years. This person was not going to change, and it's because of what you do in your homes every day. He learned the Bible and the Constitution at the dinner table. He didn't learn it for an election. He didn't learn it from his professors in law school. His mother, you know the story of his father I briefly described. His mother was the first in her family to go to college. Many of you have that story in your family. She graduated in 1956 with a degree in math. Ted's mother, if his father is a wonderful speaker on stage, a wonderful preacher, incredibly passionate about freedom, Ted's mother is unflappable. She's behind the scenes, she's quiet, she's wise, she's patient, she has a backbone of steel. And when you see Ted and you understand his family and his parents, just like each of you, when you understand your family, you know exactly where these qualities come from. You've seen him on the debate stage many times. And you see his mother come through when he waits patiently, when he asks people to breathe a few times before they continue on. Ted will wait you out. He has undying patience. And I tell the 27 million Texans that I get to spend time with so frequently that to this day, there is one person that has the ultimate say that Ted will listen to, and that is his mother. So their U.S. Senator still listens to his mother, and I can guarantee you, as President of the United States, he will still listen to his mother. She is that much more patient. She will wait him out. She's over 80 and she can still stay up longer than he can. So he gets his backbone of steel from his mother, and I can tell you, it hasn't changed in 80 years, so it's not going to change in 45 years. Ted is so consistent, and I love that about him, and you can depend on that when you vote for him. Second, Ted is courageous. He's willing to sacrifice political capital to do what is right, and we've seen that over and over. People say that, why isn't Ted more popular? Well, it's simply because he's working with people who haven't been doing what you've asked them to do. Ted is very popular with people who are advancing the ball, with people who are moving things forward. And you know, when people have called him names and engaged in silly politics, you've noticed that Ted doesn't respond in kind. And in fact, when Senator McCain called him a wacko bird, he called his office the next day and invited him to dinner. That's the kind of person that Ted is. He will kill you with kindness. He will fight for principle, and he loves to debate the issues. And if you're interested in debating the issues and making the argument and winning the argument, Ted's your best friend. Ted worked hard to defeat Obamacare. He's worked hard during difficult times to fight for veterans. He stood up for the budget at a time when the Senate leadership was trying to change the rules of the Senate to pass the Obama budget so that Republicans could say that they tried. Ted and Mike Lee were the only two that said, no, we're not going to change the rules so that we can fool voters and go home early. Third, I want to tell you how thoughtful Ted is. Something that you don't see on a campaign trail or in the interviews on TV is, how does Ted treat his family? How does he treat his friends? And think about his mother and what a low-key, even-tempered person she is. Ted is the easiest person to be around. He's very even-tempered, he's incredibly thoughtful because he has such a command of the issues. He's not hauling briefing books around, he's not nervous as to what he's going to say next. He doesn't have to prep dramatically for what to say to the press in case someone could misconstrue. He speaks with clarity, he's articulate, he's definitive, and he talks about fundamental building blocks, and when you listen to him, there's a logical conclusion. Because he's so good at this, he has time to think about his family, to be thoughtful. He's never impatient, even in stressful moments. And right before the South Carolina debate, it was 7:04 p.m., the debate started at 8. There was right before that debate. Ted is the kind of person who cancels his Senate schedule in the morning to go sit as a U.S. Senator for 6 hours at the hospital with a friend of ours who is having surgery to sit and pray with their family. Ted's a wonderful father. Our girls, we have 2 little girls. Caroline is 7, Catherine is 5, and they've been campaigning with us, and they simply love their dad. Caroline's a little cynical. She tests him every day. She wants to know how many states he's won, and if he's had to go back to a state multiple times, she's a little confused. You should be able to convince people on your first try. So she's pretty tough on him. And and she keeps a count. She has a delegate count, and she said, you know, to win, you've got to be number 1. So Caroline, we got that memo. We're working on it. Catherine is sweet. She wants to help every day. We were home for half a day just a couple days ago, and I was opening all the home mail, and she's 5. She was opening the envelopes. In the middle of opening the mail, she looked at me and she said, Mama, does this help to winning too? She wants to help every waking moment. She wants to make sure that what she's doing is helping Dad win. Ted loves to play with them. He loves to read to them. And I have never seen a person running for President of the United States who, even not behind the scenes, is less stressed. And I know it's because Ted depends on God. He has a strong faith. He has a supportive family. And he's not doing this for himself. He's doing it for you. This is not his story, it's God's story. And so the outcome will have his fingerprints, God's fingerprints all over it, and we don't need to know the outcome. This was the right race to run in. We're doing our best, and I believe that if we all band together, we will represent the values that this country holds dear, and the right person will win. In order to tell you what Ted will do as president, I need to tell you where we are right now. You know, right now there's an anger in this country, an anger at the political class that no longer represents we the people, but represents their own special interests. We had a recession 8 years ago. A lot of people are doing very well. The stock market's up 250%. Big companies are growing. When we travel this country, small businesses across this country are being crushed by regulations, by Obamacare, by taxes. College students, people who are young, who are getting a start with that glimpse of the American dream, aren't getting job offers. People who were laid off in 2008, a lot of them have not been fully employed or rehired again and don't have enough to retire on. The Federal Reserve has controlled interest rates and kept them so low that we can't live off of our savings. We have a government that represents special interests, not we the people. And Ted so rightly calls this group the Washington Cartel. In the last year, we've seen front and center government forced on the daily lives of Americans. People coming up to us and saying they spend more time filling out paperwork than they can running their business, whether it be a product or whether it be in the education system. We need to make sure that men and women that are performing an honest day's work for years and years benefit from that. Instead, we've had people working hard in the same jobs for a long time with wages remaining stagnant and the cost of living rising. Wages are being held down in part because of illegal immigration. You only have to look so far as the state of Arizona, who's done a lot of work on clamping down on illegal immigration. We celebrate immigration, but legal immigration. None of us would be here if it weren't for immigration, but we need a system that works. And by following the law, the state of Arizona has actually seen a pretty dramatic rise in the minimum wage through market forces. Because people who are illegal have not been able to get a job, they go back to their country. The businesses in Arizona have had to hire people at the bottom of the economic ladder who are American citizens, who might be in a trade, might be a machinist, who are able to perform the work, who have been paid far too little for far too long because of our country not following the law. It's time to start following the laws in this country so that everyone who is here legally from wherever we came have a fair shake at the American dream. For this country, we need to elect someone who will take on the unwitting political class. We need to elect someone who has taken on the unwitting political class, who doesn't just say that they will, who doesn't just say that they've now been convinced and changed on every single issue, where their background doesn't reflect anything that they're saying. We need to elect someone who has a proven record, and I believe that Ted is the person who is the right person for that. I'd love to remind New Yorkers that probably so far in the country, Texans know Ted the best, and he won with a 17-point margin on Super Tuesday, the people that he represents. So what will Ted do as president? The first thing is he will prioritize getting the private sector back on its feet so the private sector can create jobs. And how do we do this? We feel behind economically. We feel that our standard of living is dropping, not rising. Ted will reduce taxes and regulations. By creating a simple, flat tax, small businesses can once again flourish and the private sector can create jobs. He will dramatically reduce the size and scope of the regulatory state. For far too long, our federal government has reflected nothing that our founders had in mind. He has a proposal called 5 for Freedom. There are 5 huge government bureaucracies that are costing you money that we don't need. One of them is the Department of Commerce, the Department of Education. We should block grant it and send it back to you who know how to educate your children the best. The Department of Energy, the Department of HUD, the Home and Urban Development, and the IRS. If we can fill out our taxes on a postcard, abolish the IRS. Instead of 90,000 people who have to find a way to be busy and they're looking through your taxes and deciding what religion you might be and going after different groups to impinge upon your freedoms, we could have a small office in the basement of the Treasury Department to collect those postcards. And that's exactly what Ted did. He said, we talk a lot about job retraining in this country. We will retrain, we need to retrain those 90,000 agents at the IRS and put them along our southern border. The second thing that Ted will do is protect our freedoms. He will protect our constitutional liberties. He already has an incredible record of doing so, of defending religious liberty, of defending the words under God in the 10 Commandments, of defending the right of the 10 Commandments to stand on federal land, not because there's no other religion accepted in our country, but because the 10 Commandments have been the basis of civil society in all Western nations for centuries. This is how he wins. Ted has protected our right to keep and bear arms. He gathered a group of states to defend our individual rights. He's defended our right to privacy. He's defended the 10th Amendment. And he's defended the sovereignty of the United States, that our judicial system is sovereign for U.S. citizens, not the World Court, not the UN telling us what to do. Ted will stand up for our rights. And if you haven't reviewed these cases and you want to, they are on our website. Ted says, we're not going to have an issues page. We're not going to tell people what we believe. We're going to show them what we've done. This is unique amongst the candidates left in this race. I can guarantee you he will continue to stand up and fight for your rights as President of the United States. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, in protecting our freedoms, Ted will appoint principled constitutionalists to the U.S. Supreme Court. The third key priority in this administration, if elected president, Ted will keep our country safe. He will work with every bone in his body to defeat ISIS, not just to nibble around the edges and send over a couple photo op foreign policy days, but truly defeat ISIS. As Commander-in-Chief, Ted will have the backs of the men and women in uniform and give them respect. He will build our military into the strongest that this world has ever known with the proper funding, training, and equipment. He will put American national security interests first. No more nation building, but definitive goals that protect us, and we will be such a threat that our enemies will not eagerly seek to destroy us. Ted needs to do his job as president, just like Ronald Reagan did, to use the bully pulpit of peace. And with the strength of the strongest military on earth, if the president speaks out for peace and freedom, our enemies will know exactly where they stand. If we go and have a clear mission, we win decisively. Security includes border security. It includes comprehensive immigration reform. We have a very specific proposal for that. It's on our website. It's really important that you read that you understand that Ted is pro-immigration, but he's pro-legal immigration and streamlining legal immigration to make this country right again. If we run on these three priorities, growth, freedom, and security, with a mandate from the people, I believe that we collectively can turn this country around. If we have a president focused on keeping his word and representing each of us, just like Ted has done for Texas, Congress will have no choice but to act and fall in line and get something done for you. They will have to repeal Obamacare. They will have to return power to the states. They will have to get rid of Common Core because you won't allow it. They will have to balance our budget and institute the flat tax and abolish the IRS. These are all things that have to go through Congress. But you elect them to represent you, and Ted won't let them get away with not doing their job. Most importantly, Congress will actually represent we the people. There's much that can be done on day one, and Ted uniquely understands the presidential powers that are available to the executive and the limits thereon. On day one, he said many times what he can do in the first 24 hours. Think, when you truly understand the Constitution and you know the presidential powers, the powers of Congress, and the power of judiciary enumerated therein, there's a lot that this current administration has done through the executive branch that can be undone on day one. We don't need 4 years to get a lot of this done. In the first 24 hours, Ted will rescind every illegal executive order put in place by this president. If it's illegal, it will be rescinded. He doesn't need councils of people to get their advice on what they want. He will rip to shreds the Iranian nuclear deal. He will ask the Department of Justice to launch an investigation into Planned Parenthood for the illegal activities. And he will return the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Ted will he'll continue to do, as he's always done, stand with the people of Israel. He will not only stand with the Jewish people, he will be outspoken for the Jewish people. The strongest supporters of the Jewish people in the nation of Israel in this country are Christians. Because we share a common history, we understand that Israel is our friend, that we must protect democracy in the Middle East. We will do this because it is right, it is just, and because it is critical to the best interests of this country, your country, the United States. Finally, I want to tell you, as part 3, why we win, how we win, the way that we win. And we win in this country through democracy, citizen to citizen. Presidents are not elected by corporations. They're not elected by parties. They're not elected by big panels of leadership groups. They're elected by you. Every single person, one man, one woman, one vote. And this week could not be more critical in New York. Do you know that on our campaign, we have over 1.2 million courageous conservatives around this country. Over 1.2 million people, that is the size of a huge city, who have volunteered their time and are working hard on this campaign to elect Ted. People taking their time to phone bank and walk door to door. Any hours, minutes, time you can spend in this next week joining our effort to do that. You are joining 1.2 million people doing that in the states across this country. Our donations have come from over 1.3 million unique donations, most of which are online. We've raised over $85 million with an average donation size of $62. This was the campaign that the New York Times said on March 24, great launch, great candidate, Republicans might like him, but they'll never be able to raise the money. And you know, if we just depended on big businesses, we would have never been able to raise the money. But our average donation size is $62. People giving sacrificially because they know that every individual can make a difference. And collectively, we have. We can do this together. Ted cannot win this race by himself. But we as a team, we as courageous conservatives, we can unite and win this race together. This is a party of principle, of hardworking men and women, of believers in the private sector, believers in private property, of libertarians, fiscal conservatives, evangelicals, women, millennials, and Reagan Democrats have even crossed party lines to vote for someone that they know that they can depend on. If we continue to unite these different parts of our party, we will win in a resounding victory. We even get these crossover votes when people understand that you're running on principle even more than party. I know that the people of New York can take the true measure of a man and a woman, a man or a woman. I know the people of New York are smart, industrious, hardworking, that you like someone who is accountable, who wants to be held accountable, that you like to know that someone is telling you the truth, that will look you in the eye, that you know that you're getting a fair shake, and that the law is being followed. If these qualities embody who you are, I ask that you join me in being courageous and going out and working hard this week and beyond to elect someone who I know will not let you down, my best friend, my partner in life, and my husband, Ted Cruz.
Thank you so much, everyone. We want to call all the pastors, Pastor Garcia, Pastor Derek, Pastor Marco Rosales, all the pastors to please come up. Jimmy Perez, Pastor Jimmy Perez, all the pastors please come up. Please, all the pastors. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Angel Cepeda, please come up. All of you, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Apostle Garcia.
I want to thank everyone for coming today. We're going to pray for Mrs. Cruz and Mr. Cruz, Senator Cruz, as they go forth in this journey, and we believe in God's direction. Apostle Garcia, please come and pray.
I'm going to ask my son to translate for me. It's easier for me. Okay. Padre, en el nombre de Jesús,
Father, in the name of Jesus,
te damos gracias
we give you thanks
por la vida de la familia Cruz,
for the life of the family of the Cruz family,
que para un tiempo como este
that for such a time as this,
has levantado
you have raised them up
para poder enfrentar
so that they could come against or face
las situaciones que esta nación confronta.
the situations that this country is facing.
Dice tu palabra
Your word says
que eres tú
that it is you
el que quita y pone
who
reyes.
takes away and puts kings.
Y nosotros confiamos
And we are confident
de que tú conoces el corazón
that you know the heart
de este candidato
of this candidate
y de cada uno de ellos,
and of each and every one of them.
por amor a tu nombre,
For the name, your name's sake,
por amor a esta nación
for the love of this
que
nation
fue fundada en estos fundamentos bíblicos,
that was founded on biblical principles.
pedimos
We ask
que si Ted Cruz
that if Ted Cruz
es la persona
is the person
que tú has diseñado
that you have designed or
para este
designated
tiempo,
for this time,
que se convierta en nuestro
that he would
presidente,
become our future president.
en el nombre de Jesús,
In the name of Jesus,
te damos
we
gracias
give you thanks
por la gracia y el
for
favor
the favor and the grace
que le darás
that you will give him.
a él y a su
For
familia.
him and his family,
Protégelos,
protect them, Lord.
guárdalos
Watch over them.
y todo lo que necesiten,
And everything that they need,
concédelo
would you supply it, Lord,
para gloria de tu
for
nombre.
the glory of your name.
Gracias por esta dama
Thank you for this lady
que con mucho valor
that with great value
habla
will speak
de sus
of
convicciones.
her convictions.
Gracias por humanizar a un Ted Cruz que solo vemos por televisión
Thank you for bringing Ted Cruz in a tangible light,
y que podemos, Señor, conocer un poco de su
and
carácter.
that we could get to know today a little bit more of his character.
Bendícela
Bless her, Lord,
y dale fortaleza
and give her strength
para el resto del
for
camino.
the rest of this journey.
En el nombre de Jesús.
In the name of Jesus.
Amén.
Amen.
Can we take a picture with all the pastors? First, let me say this. We thank you for your time. We know you're a very busy schedule, and you took your time to speak your heart and your husband's heart. I know behind every good man is a great woman. I have one sitting right in the first row. And just as a small thing, as pastors, we understand the pressures of life and of people always watching you and looking at you through a microscope. But we know that God's hand is upon you, and that you're a woman of God, and that Ted is a man of God. And so we stand with our brother and our sister. If you become president of the United States or not, you are, and hopefully yes. But God has a tremendous life ahead for you both, and you are effective, and you're already impacting so many people. So thank you from the pastors here, from the people that have come. You are welcome to Long Island. God bless you.
Thank you, everyone. Our future First Lady of the United States of America, Heidi Cruz. Yes, Heidi Cruz. I don't know how much time we have, but I'm sure everyone wants to take a picture. So we go with them?
I don't know. So you want to take this picture? Okay. Hey, Phil.